Recently, Bill Gates was on a podcast where he said that AI is going to cause us to need a new religion in which to understand the new reality we find ourselves in. Now, a lot of people have covered this, they've talked about it, but it's been so surface level because there's something so much larger going on that has much more history to it. We're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's get into things. Welcome to the Enemies Within the Church podcast. You can go to EWTC News. That stands for Enemies Within the Church News. EWTCnews.com to, view the documentary if you haven't already. You can also buy a copy there, give it to your friend, give it to everyone you know. You can also stay up to date with our current projects, which this podcast is part of. And if you want to support the podcast as Enemies Within the Church, we're moving on to some larger documentary. We don't have the funds to dedicate to the side things like the podcast. So if you want to see the podcast continue, if you really want to help out there, please consider going to either the Give, Send, Go or the Patreon, both linked below, and contributing in some way. That goes directly, that is for me, for the work I do here in order to justify the time that it takes. That's not for the entire Enemies Within the Church project. I'd really encourage you to give that way as well. But that is an option to help out the podcast and to help some of the other things, the other continuing projects go on. Now, what are we talking about today? Like I said, we're going to be talking about Bill Gates, sort of. That's a jumping off point. But we're going to be talking about his recent comment of the need for a new religion, due to the advancements that AI brings. Now, this is something so much bigger than just that little statement. That's a throwaway line. It really is. It's a throwaway line, but he's referencing something much larger. That's not an idea that he just pulled out of thin air. It's not something he pulled out of thin air. We're going to look at that just a little bit. Let's look at the clip though. Let's look at the clip because we want to have some context.
All right, last question. Can you leave us with a final thought about what is possible to achieve if everything breaks our way in the next 15 years, and what's the first step to get there?
The potential positive path is so good that it will force us to rethink how should we use our time. You can almost call it a new religion or a new philosophy of, okay, how do we stay connected with each other, not addicted to these things that'll make video games look like nothing in terms of the attractiveness of spending time on them. So it's fascinating that the issues of, disease and enough food, of climate, if things go well, those will largely become solved problems. And, so the next generation does get to say, okay, given that some things that were massively in shortage are now not, how do we take advantage of that? Do we ban AI being used in certain endeavors so that humans get some, like you don't want robots playing baseball, probably,
Sure.
because they'll be too good. So we'll keep them off the field. Okay, how broadly would you go with that? We are so used to this shortage world that I hope I get to see how we start to rethink these deep meaning questions.
Bill, a tour de force. Thank you.
Notice how casual he is about certain comments. You might miss a bit of what's going on there, but he's just kind of casually talking about, we'll just kind of keep humans around there. We'll keep them around for baseball. Notice the way he talks about it as well. AI is the assumed thing. It will be there. It will be running things, and we are a secondary thing, almost a pet to keep around in certain places, to give meaning. Now, is it giving meaning to the people participating, or is it giving meaning to the people watching? I think from Bill Gates' perspective, he is a watcher. He is not a participator in anything. He is an observer of humanity. So I think it would be fair to say he's talking about himself as an observer. He's going to be one of the elites that gets to observe, that gets to enjoy, which is a creepy thought. Creepy thought. But again, it's what he's talking about. Now, again, some of his comments might sound a little bit not as, he's saying, oh, well, we need a new religion or a new philosophy in order to understand humanity in this new age of plenty, this new AI age, this new where all our problems have been solved. Well, okay, he's just talking about we need a new way to understand the world. That is a religion. That's why he used the term. He is talking about religion. He's talking about the evolution of religion, because what? He's talking about the evolution of mankind. That's his paradigm he's operating in. That's his religion. And he's saying, we're going to enter the next phase of my religion, and it's going to then be the religion of everyone. And this is going to be brought about by technology. Now, it should be very creepy coming from a man who is investing heavily in technology, AI. He's basically saying, I'm going to sell you utopia. Anytime someone comes to you with something like that, that should be more than a little bit of a red flag. More than a little bit of a red flag. But we need to go just a few layers deeper, because if you have no idea what Bill Gates is talking about, again, you can miss the significance. Let's frame it in context, though. So what was the whole podcast about? The whole podcast was about things like climate change. And, you notice the details in there: climate change, shortage, things of that nature. That these are the problems holding back humanity. And once we can solve them, we'll enter the new age of plenty. That was the context. The context was AI and climate change predominantly. But this is not a new promise. This has been the promise for the entire secular humanist age. Now, what do I mean by the secular humanist age? I mean the age of science, not traditional science that was motivated by a love of God and understanding his creation, but modern atheistic evolutionary science. The era of Darwin, where we got ideologies such as Marxism, which spawned directly from atheistic evolution. And that's not a random throwaway thing. No, you can go look at Marx. He credits many things to Darwin and to Darwin's theories, because they are what unshackled so many things. All these men that wanted to pursue their own lusts now had a justification, and they were going crazy. Another big thing that came out of that time was eugenics. Eugenics. Well, if all mankind evolved from monkeys, and we are in this process of evolution, then there's a consequence. Some men are more evolved than others. So you got the horrifyingly bigoted eugenics movement, and just bigotry in general. Now suddenly, that's where the whole idea of race-based skin color comes from, or skin color-based race. All these things comes from, and really, really gross ideas and gross things. It's so gross that they were allowed to be entertained at all, and that they got so far into society. Now we're dealing with the consequences, but you see the eugenics movement born. And that's really what it is. It's advancing humanity. It is a movement about evolving humanity, creating an ideal man. You might even say a master race. We don't like that one. We don't like that one. Why? Well, because They can't give a reason why the Nazis were bad. They can only look at the means and say, oh, well, we don't agree with the means. Yes, but they were explicitly carrying out the end results or the implementing the strategies of these movements, these eugenics movements, this idea, the idea that some men are more evolved than others, and we need to propel human evolution forward. That's really what was going on. Now, this idea continues on. If you have not listened to the episode, on the Marxist origins of modern education, you need to go listen to that. Go listen to that right now. You really, really do, because this is going to dovetail into that. Because just as John Dewey was trying to evolve mankind through his takeover of education, his transforming of education, seeing it as a developmental step of humanity, that was built off of the same things. So it was built off of the same ideas. This secular, humanist, atheist idea. But one of the things we looked at in that episode was Humanist Manifesto number 1. And if you go and listen to that episode or go read Humanist Manifesto number 1, it's pretty short. You'll learn a lot of things. Document from over 100 years ago. And what does it sound like? It sounds exactly like Bill Gates here. The need for an evolved religion, the evolution of as man is evolving, so too must our religion. And they're arguing that secular humanism is a religion. It just happens to be the more evolved religion. Well, that's exactly what Bill Gates is alluding to. He's not as much explicitly saying it. Now, people are going, oh, wow, Bill Gates said this. No. He's repeating what others have said. What others have said. In particular, transhumanist author Yuval Noah Harari, who Bill Gates constantly recommends his books, constantly recommends Harari's books. And what Bill Gates was saying in that episode, that little clip we watched, is just parroting and summarizing down what Harari is saying. And Harari says some very, very, very creepy things. He is the culmination of so many different streams of thought that all stem back to evolution. Darwin unleashed a floodgate. He detached so many things from reality. And when you detach something from reality, you detach it from God. You detach it from the anchor of reality. So again, you go listen to that episode, because you'll get a good basis for what we're talking about here. But you can see this process. Now again, back then it was eugenics. It was things like, in the early mid 20th century, it was Planned Parenthood was a big eugenics project. And Margaret Sanger was very explicit about her desires with it. She wanted to eliminate minorities through abortion. Wicked, wicked things. Wicked, wicked things. And it was about evolving humanity. Well, as technology develops, our path changes. No longer is it eugenics, simple just the killing off of lesser humans and the breeding of superior humans. Well, now we can incorporate new things. We have advanced technology, advanced science with, a religious connotation, not actually exploring God's world. But we see this, and we see the birth of what's called transhumanism, transcending humanity. We're going to transcend our human limitations. We're going to achieve the next step of humanity, human evolution. You see this is so popular in pop culture. So popular in pop culture, whether it's TV, video games, obviously movies as well, movies, TVs, all over the place, this idea of transcendence, of humanity escaping the bonds through their own power, our own will to power. We will escape the bonds of this flesh in some form. In some form. And the popular idea now is that AI is going to be the next step for that. And that's what Bill Gates is getting at. That's what Bill is getting at. Now, we're going to, well, by were, I mean, you're going to have the opportunity. So I'm going to end this episode by just playing a clip from an interview I did that I saved specifically for this reason. So I'd have something on transhumanism. So I'm going to give you that at the end. You'll find that extremely fascinating, and that'll help give some details to this. If you're listening to this podcast rather than watching a video version, during that little interview where I asked, it's with Dr. Phil Fernandez. He was on the show the beginning of this season, and I asked him about transhumanism, and he gave some wonderful thoughts. And you'll see the connection between Bill Gates, what he's saying here, and Harari. But if you're listening to it, I did put some things on the screen to help you understand some of what's being said, because he's going to talk about things that, if you've never heard before, sound sci-fi and crazy, like animal-human hybrids. And so I provided some references on the screen, multiple references, specific to what is being said, like British Parliament authorizing the creation of animal-human hybrids. Well, the news stories and references right there on screen. So just know that if you hear something, you go, wow, that sounds a little bit crazy. Is that a justifiable statement? You can quickly jump over and when you get home, watch the video version, fast forward that part and look at it. But this is something that they've been pushing for over a century, ever since humanity was unshackled. So they'd say, unshackled from the binds of traditional religion and the myths and superstitions, the weak morality of God, of Christianity. Now, through man's will to power, we can assert our hard morals. We can assert the next stage of humanity, the evolution of mankind. And it's disturbing. It's disturbing because it comes down to, I am God. I, as a man, I am God. That is what they're promoting. Now, again, don't take my word for it. What's the book that Bill Gates, not there's much difference between those two. What's the book that Bill Gates is getting this from? It's Harari's book, Homo Deus. Man as God. That's actually the title of the book, and that is what he's promoting, the evolution of mankind, man as God. So when Bill just drops that little line in there, that's the weight, that's what's going on with it. Now you can trace this all the way back to the garden. You can trace this all the way back to the garden. I think the immediate common denominator for this is Darwin. That's when the floodgates kind of broke, and you really get the origins of modern secular humanism. It's the point where you can trace Marxism, transhumanism, and some of these different thoughts. You can trace them back there. But I think there is one biblical thing worth highlighting, and that's, it should be a little obvious, it's the Tower of Babel. Because this is exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to rebuild the tower. They're trying to regather humanity into a unified group under their religion, their control, one language, one people, one place. And doing that will mean we'll solve all the problems and we'll live in peace and harmony and utopia. They're trying to rebuild the Tower of Babel to climb it so that Homo can become Deus, so that man can become God. This is some creepy stuff, but this is what people are actually trying to do, what they actually believe in, what they are actually, they think this is reality. People, we've got a lot of work because this is, again, it's all over pop culture and people passively adopt these ideas all the time. They're so okay with so much of this. So okay with so much of this. They're looking for an escape from the brokenness of this current world, the brokenness of this current flesh. And transhumanism is giving them an avenue, a way to escape. But it's saying it comes from us. It comes from man climbing the tower and claiming the throne of God, establishing themselves at the top, the pinnacle, the peak, and through their own power, prowess, through their ability to evolve themselves. And, Lord help you if you're not one of the elites. Hey, they might keep you around. You've got some skills. They might keep you around as the monkey that plays baseball for them. But this is so I want to clarify one thing. I'm going to clarify one more thing. I'm going to give you a little outro, and then it's going to go right into that interview. So you can watch that. But what is our response, and where is the hope? So the hope is, this is one of the most important and critical reasons why we're given the book of Revelation. We're given the end of the story. You know what the biggest point and purpose of Revelation is? Christ wins. He is victorious. Bill Gates ain't going to be able to stop him. AI ain't going to be able to stop him. None of this is going to be able to stop him. Christ is going to win eternally. Everyone will be subjected to Christ. He will subjugate the entire world. There will, you can debate different things about the end times, which there's so much silliness about some of that debate, but everyone agrees that Christ will reign forever. That there will be no Bill Gates challenging him. We should take comfort in that. We should take comfort in that. But it should also motivate us to get out there and preach the gospel that sets people free from this wickedness, the wicked cage that men like Bill Gates are trying to build around humanity. The cage is going to come with a lot of death. If we thought that Marxism of the 20th century was violent, just wait until you see the evolution of 20th century Marxism really get into gear when it starts to merge back in with some of its old friends like eugenics and eugenics' new form of transhumanism. And how do we stand against that? Well, the biggest thing is we got to go out and preach the gospel. We got to attack their power base, their religion, by taking away its adherents. We got to be informed. We got to know what's going on. but we got to get out there and preach. This is a religious war that's going on. Bill Gates made that clear himself. This is a religious war that's going on. And so we've got to stand up for our fellow man. We've got to preach the gospel to our fellow man. We've got to see souls saved. We got to see lives saved. We got to resist evil wherever it pops up. And, one thing, in the wake of the election, I'll just throw this in there. In the wake of the election, there are some very dangerous things that happen for this country. States that vote red. States that voted red. Also enshrined abortion into their constitutions. Eugenics. The controlling of humanity. The depopulation of humanity. The reducing us down to that manageable size that Bill Gates wants. I don't want my kids to be the monkeys that entertain Bill Gates. Abortion, we have to take that much more seriously. That really is a make or break issue for this country, for society as a whole. Really is a make or break issue. We gotta take that more seriously. And again, but that's not going to change. You see, again, we see red voting states supporting that. Why? Because they have no basis for morality. It's all arbitrary to them. They've been recruited into this transhumanist religion. They've been recruited into the secular humanist religion, indoctrinated. We have to stand up politically, but we also got to go and rescue those people from those demonic ideologies. Anyway, I hope this has been useful. Again, we're going to jump right into that little interview. I think it's right about 10 minutes long, 8-10 minutes. And I think you'll find it very fascinating. Very fascinating. If this episode has been useful, consider sharing it, engaging with it. And again, like I'll always say, it's fine to blast it out on social media, but when I say share it, I mean share it with someone who's asking questions and this can help them answer them. Thank you for being with us on this episode. God bless you. Remember, don't go woke. Now, to the interview. Could you quickly give me a definition of what is transhumanism?
Scientists who believe in evolution, it is their attempt to bring about the next stage in the evolution of man. And so to go beyond the present state of humanity to the next level, a higher level. Originally, the emphasis was on animal-human hybrids. I remember when I debated at Princeton, that was the big talk in the Ivy League schools was when we come up with these animal-human hybrids, should they be the master race and we be their slaves? Or should we be their slaves and they be the master race, since they'll probably be stronger than us, that might have better eyesight, better sense of smell, whatever it may be. Of course, whoever the movers and the shakers of the world, the man molders of the new age, as C.S. Lewis would call them, they would be in charge over, even if the animal-human hybrids were the master race. And so now we have probably millions of animal-human hybrids on planet Earth, because we now know scientifically that human life starts at the moment of conception. And I believe I think it was during the Michael Jackson scandals, when the news was reporting on that, to me that wasn't real news. I just turned off the sound and would read the real news on the bottom. And Parliament, I don't know what year it was. It had to be at least 20-something years ago. But Parliament had legalized harvesting animal human hybrid embryos, frozen embryos for stem cell research. And so so I started looking into it, and I found out we had frozen embryos, probably even some frozen fetuses, not just in Great Britain, but in America and throughout the world, of animal human hybrids. Now, nobody wanted to publicly ever bring one to birth
Yeah.
because if it was human enough, it might sue them, and that would be a real downer for the research. But do they have something in a government lab somewhere? I don't know. But whatever the case, they've moved on. They have so much confidence in man's technology and human wisdom that we think we could do better than animal human hybrids with machine human hybrids. And so that's the direction we're moving in there. Now, um, I think the best book on the subject, which is all for this garbage, man playing God, is by Yuval Noah Harari, his Homo Deus book, The Man God, where that's what the goal now is of these um, globalist billionaires who want to rule the world, that are into the transhumanism. By the way, they're the same guys that funded the medical procedure, the new medical technology that to deal with COVID. So I was like, count me out right from the start on that one. But now they're into machine human hybrids. But even there with AI, you got to understand these guys. Harari is like a modern day B.F. Skinner, the behavioral scientist who believed that humans don't have free will. All our choices are biologically or environmentally controlled. Therefore, he and his elitists should control us genetically and environmentally to bring about the best possible world. And let's get beyond freedom and human dignity. Well, of course, Francis Schaeffer pointed out that B.F. Skinner and his atheist intellectual buddies, they're also controlled, if B.F. Skinner is correct, genetically and environmentally. And what in the world, if B.F. Skinner doesn't believe in right and wrong, what does the word best, good, better, best, what does the word best mean? What is the best future? You have no way of knowing if that's the extinction of mankind or man flourishing. But whatever the case, so he thinks AI will surpass human intelligence. AI, it's like a calculator can do math quicker than a human, but it doesn't mean that the calculator has any intelligence, let alone more intelligence than humans. And so AI, as it gets better and better, it can already defeat the world's greatest chess players. He thinks it's going to surpass human intelligence. And if you don't factor into AI that all men are created equal and deserving of God-given and inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, if you don't factor that stuff into AI, and instead you factor in uh, the number one goal is to save the planet from ecological disaster, and the number one problem is humanity, well, then, yeah, the algorithms are eventually going to say extinct, the extinction of the human race is the best possible um, uh, goal. And but whatever the case, he really spills the beans on what these guys are thinking. The Bill Gates, the Klaus Schwabs of the World Economic Forums, Elon Musk spilled that on because he attends those meetings, but he still has a little bit of a conscience left to him. And when he told Joe Rogan during an interview that they don't think they need humans anymore. And Joe Rogan said none. And he said, well, they need enough humans so they don't interbreed too much. And so that's the view of these people who want us to trust them. They know what's best for us, and we're the little peasants. And so it's all intertwined. The transhumanist movement, AI, artificial intelligence, and things of that sort, and globalism, and depopulation, and so I definitely think it's things that we need to be aware of and need to speak out against. And I just found out one of my students is going to be, after he graduates in computer science, is going to be going for a master's degree, and he wants to get involved in AI, and we need more Christians involved, and because if you leave this to the worldview of the wannabe dictators, it's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly fast.